And just on the top?
Yeah, up the top, and you can walk in from up there.
Yeah, just go around the campground gate and...
My great-grandfather apparently owned some of that land up that way at one point, the Rushers. And they used to have sheep and cattle that they took up there, and a lot of the people used to...
On the forest itself?
Up in that flat part up there. I'm not sure. I think he had part of the maybe the tract that y'all first got on that side, small part of it. But apparently there was a whole pasture cleared off up there that a lot of the locals and everything ran their sheep up there and had sheep on the top of the mountain years ago.
What kind of educational facilities, I mean, educational activities do you do?
That's really the main reason that we're here is to do classes with school groups primarily, but any interested group really. We have about a dozen classes that we do, and we're making up new ones all the time. Right down below here, we do a water investigation along that creek. We use the shelter for our How Paper Comes from Trees classes. We make paper with the kids, and there's a tree growth ring class we do. It's real popular. Down below here, we've got a tree ID course we set up. We've got 7 trees that we number and made up this little key for the kids to use, and they go around, try to identify the trees from the key. There's a predator-prey activity we do called Oh Dear that sort of lets the kids get an idea of the importance of predators in a habitat. What happens when there's no predation. And the way the game is set up, some of them are deer and some of them are predators, or they're the deer's habitat. And eventually the deer, because of the way the game's played, the deer herd gets really huge, the habitat shrinks. Then we introduce pick some teachers or parents, whoever's there, and introduce them as predators, and then the kids can see that it gets back into a balance again. And one of the last things I like to talk to them about is ask them, are the predators mean or evil to do what they do, or bad to do what they do? And by the time we've finished, they understand that they're not. They're just doing what they naturally do to survive, to feed their young, and that they actually benefit the prey critters by hunting. But those are probably the main ones that we do. They all focus on the forest ecosystem, and being that we're with the Forest Service, we usually talk with them about forest management. Like when we do the water investigation, we talk about erosion. Same thing when we do the soils. We have a soils class we do to talk about the importance of everything in the ecosystem, and that we actually harvest the trees out of this forest. It's sort of like a small national forest, although it's a state forest. We're managed the same way. I think a lot of folks think it's a park, but it looks just like a park. I'd be just as happy working here if it was a park. I think we need parks and we need managed forests. We need both. But hopefully by the time, we're not trying to tell the kids what to think, that forest management is a good or a bad thing. We're just trying to give them some things to think about and let them decide, because you know how we all are. No one likes to be told, this is the way it is, and this is good and this is bad and whatnot. But just to let them make their own decisions. It's been a decade or so, but it wasn't that long ago that forest management was a hugely controversial thing in the Asheville area, a couple decades ago especially, when, I don't know if y'all were here, when the Asheville watershed was going to start harvesting some of the trees in the watershed, and it became quite a big thing. And it actually didn't happen. The public spoke, and what do they say? If the people lead, the leaders will follow. And that actually happened in that case. They tabled that idea. But it actually would not have, it was one of those things that I was actually working at the watershed at the time, and I helped when we were getting the harvest areas ready, taking the measurements and everything, you know, how much to take out and marking it for the, some for thinning, some for a clear cut. But it was one of those things, it's kind of like the environment and politics and religion. We have to be really careful when talking about those issues with folks, because of those things with folks, because a lot of times, you know, they're not necessarily considered rationally.
Speaking of that, are they going to change the logo now that they've changed the name? And like it says, North Carolina Forest Service, but didn't they change it to the Forest Resource Department or something like that? Are they going to have to change it?
It's had different names over the years, yeah. Yeah, they've changed the patch.
I mean, the forest is the same, so.
They finally went with, it used, what it was, it wasn't the Forest Service that was changing, it was the name of the department
Yeah.
that we were in. Now we're, let's see, so when I first came to work, it said it was the North Carolina Department of the Environment and Natural Resources.
Natural resources, yeah, Dina, yeah.
Yeah, Diener, right. And then they finally got kind of smart, and they just quit putting,
Shorter, yeah.
so they just made it the North Carolina Forest Service, which is our division. But, so they quit putting the department's name on there, because now we're part of the Department of the Agriculture and
Yeah.
Community Services or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's the Department of Agriculture anyway.
But fortunately, the forest is the same, so.
Oh, yeah, it's all, yeah, the Forest Service is still the same too. But, yeah, we've got, back at the office, our patch collection from different forest services around different,
Cool.
like when we go on a fire, we bring patches with us and you trade, you know, you trade patches. But, so we've got a nice patch collection, but we've also got some of the old North Carolina Forest Service patches. You know, they had a rocker, a rocker's it's a separate
Bar.
thing that's sewed on above.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We've got
The
some of
tabs.
those. Yeah, across the top. Anyway, I feel like I'm talking too much, and the way we do our classes, we don't just talk like this. That's why I started out at seeing if you had questions, which always better to ask questions than to just talk, because what do they say? I think it's like 75 or 80% of the things people tell us, we just forget after, really quickly. But it's just the opposite, that we remember 75 or 80% of the things that we figure out ourselves, or that we actually are doing something. So our classes, we try to have the kids doing something, and we ask them questions. And it's amazing how much they already know, and the questions that they ask us are great.
And it's kind
It's one
of
of
like
the most
taking
fun things to
ownership.
do.
They realize it's their forest, It's their trees, it's their animals, it's their predators, it's their deer. It's, the trees are theirs, and it's their responsibility, it's part of it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because in our orientation, which is sort of, this is a really unusual orientation, I'm not doing it anything by the way it's scripted, kind of, but I like to ask the kids towards the end, who, let's see, that this is a state of North Carolina forest, so who does this forest belong to? And, they get it, that, they have to think about it. They'll say it belongs to the state of North Carolina. And so then I'll say, well, who is the state of North Carolina? And then they realize it. So, and then part of that is like taking responsibility, as you said, for not only the wildlife and everything, but also while they're here visiting us, or any natural area, taking responsibility for taking care of it. And so then I'll say, well, how can you help us take care of this for us? You know, they know, you know, use the trash cans, and, you know, if they see some litter, they pick it up.
What school districts come here?
Used to be many more. The kids come from Buncombe County and Asheville City, Transylvania County, Henderson County, Rutherford County, Polk County, and they come out of upstate South Carolina sometimes. They used to come from, very rarely now, but from Canton, that's Haywood County. But now, because, you know, all the school budgets are tight and their funding has shrunken, so field trips have become, like, we don't get very many school groups now from Buncombe County schools, because I think most of the time they're required to stay in the county. And that was a huge loss to us, because there's so many schools up there. So our numbers for doing classes have shrunken, but during the school year, but we do many more now than we used to in the summertime with camps. We have to kind of, where before we didn't have to put out much effort at all to kind of sell our programs. Now we have to, in order to survive. They almost closed all of the educational state forests 2 years ago. We were on the chopping block.
Or wasn't there a chopping block just this year too?
Yeah, but it wasn't quite as serious. But Raleigh, I'm not going to get into yeah, but it was much closer. We were actually
Closer 2 years ago than this year?
yes, much
I
closer.
know this year they were closing Vance Birthplace and,
Oh, really?
and the President Polk historic site was part of that proposal they just passed in the legislature. They're closing a lot of our state parks and state historic sites because of our new legislature.
What other educational state forests are there in the state?
There are six others. There's Tuttle ESF is in Lenore. Rendezvous Mountain ESF is north of Boone. It's in North Wilkesboro. It's really pretty. It's called the Rock. It's up on this mountain, and to get up to the office, you drive up. It's beautiful though. It's huge. It's a really beautiful big place. There's Jordan Lake Educational State Forest, which is near Raleigh, on the western side of Raleigh. On the eastern side of Raleigh is Clemens Educational State Forest. You all are going to remember all these, right?
I am.
Turnbull Creek Educational State Forest is near Elizabethton, down in the Sandhills. And the newest one is Mountain Island Educational State Forest near Charlotte. And, so there are 7 altogether.
The one up near Wilkesboro, was it known as Stone Mountain State Park?
That I don't know. I think there is a Stone Mountain State Park
Yes.
somewhere.
But that's not part of this.
Uh,
No, this is,
Within North Carolina, there's one.
Is it up near, is it in Ashe County?
yeah, could be.
Or,
But that's not a North Carolina.
what's the
Forest
town
Service.
that
Wilkesboro
that
and
was
West Jericho.
that Mayberry was modeled after?
Mount Airy.
Mount Airy. I think it's near Mount Airy. isn't it?
Do they do anything in the
Right.
Croatown down in there, down near the coast?
Well, the closest one there would be Turnbull Creek ESF. The Croatan, you know, that's national forest, so
Okay.
that's separate from us. But
So
it's
you do
different
yourself participate with firefighting on occasion?
work. Yeah. I've made lots of trips out west.
Have you?
So when the kids
Around
do their
North Carolina.
classes, and they do their classes here, and they learn to take ownership and responsibility for the trees around them, when they go home and they see the trees at home, they look at them differently. They
Yeah.
live it differently.
Yeah,
And
right.
then they take
Yeah.
responsibility for what's around them there too.
Sure.
I think that's really great.
Yeah. Well, you know, the whole idea is just consciousness raising, kind of, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and helping folks to just kind of to look around, to become more aware of, and to just to. My wife and I love to travel, and we like to go to Canada, one of the places, but the Canadian Rockies, and we were listening to a ranger program up there one time, and they were talking about sensorcising and, you know, like exercising, you know, and walking. But sensorcising is what you all are doing today. You're out here and, you know, and our senses, if we spend too much time indoors, become dull. But so sensorcising is going out, and I'd like to talk with this about the kids too, you know, and we'll stop and I'll say, you know, what do you hear? What do you smell? You know, what do you see? You know, what do you know, to feel things, you know, sensorcise. I think it's just.
Young people need that today more than ever in
I
history.
think so, yeah. And you know, I know we think kids today, they're just stuck in front of their computers and stuff, but believe me, there are cool, neat
Oh, yeah.
kids out there. We see a lot of them, and it gives me a lot of hope to see them. And they're so, like, I'll come in some days and, you know, have the lumbagos and you know, not really be up for whatever reason. Maybe I didn't sleep well or something. And I'll kind of drag myself out. As soon as the kids get here, they get off the buses, that energy is just, it's infectious. And all of a sudden I'm ready to go, you know. They're, it must be how, are any of you all teachers, professional teachers? I have such respect for them.
And then I guess the next step.
That's such a challenging job.
I guess the next step would be not only sensorcising in your senses, but your cat or your dog or the birds that are around you, or try to imagine what their senses must perceive, you know. I mean, there's so much broader range, even the color changes, and for birds and stuff, they can see so much more than we can, you know. And then you stretch your senses into theirs. And then you see the relationship between man and, say, dog, or man and cat, and the animals that are around them and stuff, how those broaden our senses and broaden our idea of what reality is, you know, as far as the
be more
forest.
aware.
Yeah.
Those are all good things to do.
We need to get going.
Yeah.
We're really late.
Where are you heading
We're
to?
going to Holly Springs, and then we're going to end at Newport.
Can I ask a quick question here? Susan asked me to ask this of you all. As I said, she's really interested in learning about this place, and what she really likes to do is to find like old. She did this back. She came from Jordan Lake, ESF, from the middle of the state, and she likes finding old, not like you know, municipal dumps and stuff, which are probably pretty interesting to dig into, but like old dumping sites, and just to see what's in there. And she'd heard that that there was an old post office. Does anybody
Yes,
know?
the Osteen post office was located.
Do you know where? Here in Crack Creek.
Martha's just left. Martha Osteen's a descendant. It was the first postmaster was Alicia Osteen, and all I know is it was near the creek.
Was it on the forge?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's
Because
what-
Susan's hoping that if she can find that site, that maybe there's a.
Well, you're going to have to get some of our Osteen people
The
out
Osteen,
in the community.
okay,
It's
sure.
the Osteen
Oh,
family.
she will. She'll come.
It was named the Osteen Post Office, 1895. Alicia Osteen was the first postmaster. It was located at the site of today's Holmes Educational State Forest. The post office closed in 1904. So it would have been close to the road. It wouldn't have been far back. I understand it was kind of close to the creek, but the Osteen family had owned this land.
So
at one time,
you think
some of
it
this land,
it
not
was
all
their
of
it was their farm, and they had.
People had these little country post offices usually where there was a store. Sometimes they had them right out of their home. So this would have been the home site somewhere in here of Alicia Osteen. So we should have
That'd be
her
a
call
good
me. You
start.
got my phone number?
I do.
I can meet her at the Register of Deeds office and we can check
Oh
Alicia
yeah,
Osteen.
she loves doing that too.
Yeah, just have her call me.
Can I
Well-
say something
Yeah.
real quick? May I? Folks, Jennie has been doing all these tours. As far as I know, she doesn't get paid for that. So if anybody want to make a contribution, please do. If we want her to keep doing this.
No, that's not true.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
don't you pass your hat?
Just have her call me.
I will.
Okay.
She will too.
And I
She's
know
really
I
neat.
can trace